Let's do a quick piano tutorial of the A section of a Legend of Zelda song, Midna's Lament. Let's also talk about effective practice techniques. Let's get into it. First things first, if you're using sheet music, see if the arranger left you any finger numbers on any of the notes. If they did, that's like a love letter from the arranger to you because they've already done the difficult work of figuring out what the most efficient way to play that passage is. Use those. Use those. In most cases, especially with video game music like this, they don't always leave finger numbers for us. So we need to figure out our own fingerings for the sheet music and for the passages. So what we need to do is we need to figure out what the most efficient way to play the passage is. Before we start doing repetitions, you need to be absolutely sure that that's the one that you want to do. You're always free to change it up, but to practice effectively, you need to be doing the exact same fingering every time. Okay? Okay? Deal? Deal. All right, the last thing that we're going to cover here is using the sustain pedal or the damper pedal on the piano. It's going to be the one on the far right. When using the damper pedal, your order of operations is going to be press the key down, press the pedal down, and then when you get to the end of the phrase where it indicates that you need to lift on the pedal, you are going to lift the pedal with that last key. So it'll sound like this. Press the key, press the pedal, lift together. Press the key, press the pedal, lift together. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get the metronome going. But before we do, I want you to know that you need to find a way to internalize the beat to really get the most out of your practice time, okay? The easiest way to do this is by tapping your foot on each click, okay? You don't want to be going like boom, 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 like just the end of your foot. Just tap, 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 tap. Because when you're tapping your foot like that, it's going to be like this. Tap, 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 tap. That's the end of your foot. You'll notice that when it goes up, that's going to be the middle part of the beat. The way that you count this is 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and. If you want, you can also sway. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and. Whatever you're going to do, find a way to connect. The way that I found to be most effective when I'm practicing is by counting out loud, literally articulating 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and. You'll see I kind of bob along while I do that too, because I am really internalizing that beat. That's going to be your next step into making what you're practicing musical. Because then when your click isn't there, you're going to be used to feeling this. That's what we're after. We want you to be feeling this beat as you learn the passage. So then you're going to have excellent rhythm once you're up to speed. Okay? Let's get your fingers set up for success. 5 is on D, 4 is on E, 3 is on F, 2 is on G, 1 is on A. You're going to cross 2 over to C, and then 1 is going to skip a white key and go up to E. So it's going to look like this. 5, 4, 3, 1, 2, 1. Again. 5, 4, 3, 1, 2, 1. We're going to start at 60 beats per minute. Here we go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 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 1 and 2 and 3 and. You'll know when you're ready to move up to the next click on your metronome when you're able to both internalize the beat somehow and also play the passage perfectly 5 times. That time, I got 6. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna bump it up 1 notch. Here we go. It's gonna be 63 beats per minute. 1 and 2 and 3 and 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 1 and 2 and 3 and... All right, again, that was 5 in a row, no problems at all. So I would bump it up another notch, and then I would do another 5, and then I would bump it up another notch. And you've got to be your worst critic on this. I know that as creative people, we're often way too hard on ourselves. For effective practice, though, you need to be your worst critic. Like, really make sure that you are nailing these 5 takes. If you get to the 3rd one and you make a mistake, reset the counter. Then you're starting back at 1, okay? If you get all the way to 4 and you botch that last one, back to 1, okay? Really be your worst critic on these, because the higher quality that you are delivering on these repetitions, the better off you're going to be in the long run. Deal? Deal. I'm going to play it for you now at 132 beats per minute. That's the performance tempo. That's what we're going for. Let's check it out. 1 and 2 and 3 and 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 1 and 2 and 3 and... Going from 60 to 132 beats per minute wasn't super challenging for me, but I've got 25 plus years in the game, okay? Typically what happens is you're going to hit a wall to where you're able to either not keep up while trying to internalize the beat, or your fingers start to fumble trying to keep up with the eighth notes. That's totally normal. What you should do is you might start getting frustrated. You might start getting mad even. It's okay to just walk away. But before you walk away, make sure you make some kind of note at what your breaking point was on the metronome. Because when you come back to the piano, what you can do is, instead of starting at 60 again, go ahead and start 2 or 3 notches below that breaking point number, and then start there, and then see if you can break through that breaking point. That's the key. That's how you're going to be able to slowly move up the metronome. You don't always have to start at 60 beats per minute. For this next section, I'm going to run it exactly how I practice. Here we go. All right, let's set your fingers up for success. The first part is going to be exactly the same as what we've already done. 5, 4, 3, 1. 2 is going to come over and hit B now. And 1 is going to skip 2 white keys and jump to E. Just like that. And pedal comes up with the key. Your pedal rules are the same. Press down, pedal down. Pedal and key come up at the same time. Key down, pedal down. Up together. Very good. All right, let's go ahead and start it at 60 beats per minute. 1 and 2 and 3 and 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 1 and 2 and 3 and... Success! Bump it up to 63. 1 and 2 and 3 and 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 1 and 2 and 3 and... Success! We'll bump it up to 66. 1 and 2 and 3 and 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 1 and 2 and 3 and... Very good. Success. We're going to bump it up to 69. Here we go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and success. We're going to move it up to 72. 1 and 2 and 3 and 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 1 and 2, and so on and so on and so on. Let's bump it up to 132. 1 and 2 and 3 and 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 1 and 2 and 3. All right, we're going to put it all together. It's going to be 4 of the first one and then 4 of the second one. Here we go. Full speed. 1 and 2 and 3 and 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 1 1, 2, 3. All right, that's all the time we have for today, my friends. I hope that this has been helpful. Say you're struggling with a passage of music that you're starting to learn. Feel free to leave the title, the artist, and the measure number down in the comments, and I will do my best to get to it and make a video response just like this. If you want to bypass the potential video response and just do a full-on deep dive for an hour on a virtual consult with me, that is now a service that I'm providing over at my website, mrtylerlarson.com. Either way, I look forward to helping you, and I hope that we can navigate it together. Be a blast. We'll see you out there, folks. Have a great rest of your day.